Okay, so you guys should have gotten an email inviting you to join the Canvas course. I just put you in as TAs because you're just going to be in for today's session. Once the sessions are over, we will remove you as participants. We have a fully online course version coming up later this spring that we will share with you guys that you can participate in. But for this, it's just for this session. So are you all able to get in? Have you tried to get in? Because that's what we're going to work through that process. We're going to actually do stuff inside this Canvas course. So we want you to participate to the best of everyone's abilities. And so the first one, right, we're going to be eating. So we're going to let you eat because we don't want to miss that. But under our modules, we have, if you were going through this as a course as a first day, it's web enhanced, right? So how many of you currently put your syllabus inside Canvas? Pretty typical. How many of you post your grades inside Canvas? Right? That's what we used to think of as the initial starting of a web enhanced course, but that's very common now. We all do that, almost all. So we want to make some next generation steps in doing web enhanced. One of the things you can do is in your first day, we want to build communities. And a lot of the sessions that we do, we don't get to do that. We kind of talk to the students, they do some work. We don't really get an opportunity. Some of the students speak up, some don't, and we don't necessarily get an opportunity to build out a community. So one of the things I would like you guys to do is we're going to build a community as an introduction inside this course. So I would have you guys, I would be like, hello, welcome to class. Thank you for being here on the first day. Your assignment tonight is to go home and post an introduction of yourself to the class so that we can all get a feel for who's in this class, why you're in your class, some important things. What department were you in?
Political science.
Political science. So you could say, why are you interested in this course? What do you see this doing for you in your career in school and after school? And you can really you get to have a feel for the students that are in there, but again, they get a chance to kind of be more comfortable. So as you do have discussions in class, it takes away that barrier that allows them to kind of be open and move forward in the class. So what I want you guys to do, those of you who are able to get in, if you're not able to get in, let me know and we'll make sure we add you also. But under the modules tab on the left, under the introduction module, the first thing we have is some information on netiquette. And why is this important? Does anyone know why it's important to go through and talk about netiquette to your students? If you're going to start to do things online, web enhanced?
Create an inclusive learning environment because you wouldn't in a classroom.
Right, that's great. Inclusive learning environment. And by doing that, we want to make sure we're having everybody kind of on the same page. So if we spell out netiquette, a lot of times students are LOL, right? BRB. Those kind of things. And it's second nature to them. U is the letter U. So what we want to make sure is we're in a class setting and we want you to use full grammatically correct sentences. And we want you to spell words out. And we also want to make sure that we're setting a tone that students are respectful of each other. So as they say things, you might disagree, do so in a constructive and kind way. So we want to put some netiquette out there when we do that, then make sure that it explains so that we can say it, but it's also nice if there's another piece of information that kind of backs that up and allows students to know what that information is and why, because, talk to you later isn't necessarily the best option in a full discussion post. So under the modules tab is an actual discussion post. I would like you to click on the link for that. And go ahead and click on reply. and tell me about who you are, what department you're from, and what your experience with this session is hopefully going to be. Did everyone get a chance to post their introduction? For those that want to, I should say. Now the nice thing also about this is not only have the students posted, they can also respond to each other. So if they want to have a discussion further about, oh yeah, you know, I visited that town once, I know where you're from, my favorite restaurant was, you know, Joe's Crab Shack, and that was awesome. So it's a way for them to start to relate to each other as the class begins. So if you want to respond to each other as part of the discussion posts during these sessions, feel free. There's a link here that has the definitions. This is a part of a 3-part series. This is the first, the web enhanced. The next one is the hybrid, and the last one is the fully online. Web enhanced, of course, means that we're just utilizing some tools. Used to mean basically online, but of course now there's all kinds of things that we can do that are apps and other things that aren't just web. There's iPad apps if you wanted a class with iPad. That's also considered a slight type of web enhanced, right? So there's Web 2.0 or 3.0 or all the new things that are coming out that also are available. So what can we do to make your classes enhanced with technology is the first part. Hybrid typically means, some of the words is blended, right? These are national standards for that, is that you replace part of that face-to-face time with online time. And so that way they're getting the experience, or you're freeing them up, or you're working with class schedules that are a little crazy, those giving them a chance to do stuff. So you're replacing in-class time with out-of-class time. And of course, a fully online class just means everything's online. The students never come to a physical location, and you're able to have them do it that way. So there's some information there if you want to read through that a little bit more. And that's the nice thing about having a web-enhanced class is I don't have to go through that word for word. I can just let you read it at your leisure. Okay, so when we think about students of today, what do you guys think of? That college student. What are some thoughts about students of today?
They love clear expectations.
Clear expectations.
Well in advance.
Well in advance. So clear expectations well in advance. I mean, putting things in a syllabus, giving a schedule, all of those. That's very good. We'll talk about this a little bit. Any other?
Yeah, continuing on that, they are more vocal about their rights, or they want to, but they are more aware of the things, certain rights they want as a student. And if professor fails into something, they are
They're happy to say, hey, look.
yeah.
Right? They're unafraid to speak up about what they feel their right is. So we're giving them maybe a space to do that then, right, too? If we have a discussion post where they can talk about things that they're concerned about or have issues with, if they have a discussion post and can talk about that a little bit, sometimes we're allowing them to feel that they have that venue to be able to do that. Any other thoughts about what students of today are to you?
They don't read.
They don't read. Why do we think they don't read?
Because they are constantly watching news, they are always engaged with their, maybe I would say internet connectivity has actually taken out the traditional way of reading things.
That's a fabulous point, right? Everything they have comes to them in some sort of streaming form almost, right? My son does not converse with me. He sends me a text. He's 17. He doesn't walk into the house and tell me how his day was. He will send me a text as he's leaving school and tell me, I did this today, blah, 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 and then he goes to his room. You know, his form of otherwise I wouldn't even know, which I'm grateful, because as a 17-year-old, he's just, I'm done. You know, and I might not ever hear how his day went, but he's comfortable enough to text. So, you know, if it were I failed a test, I can understand that, because mom's probably, you know, gonna scream at him or something, right? You know, you failed. No, but it's everything. It's good, bad, everything is in a text. I told you, I'm going now. So that's kind of their mode of thinking, right? Everything's mobile, everything's in front of them, everything is immediate. So how do we work with that? How do we deal with that? It's not always ideal, but sometimes it's important to reach them where they're at, right? Right? There they are. They're on their phones. I want to show you this interesting little piece that I found, and I'm going to zoom this in. This is a little color that does this every year and has for quite a while about what the graduating students that are incoming, when they graduate in 2019, they've done this for quite a few years, of what those students are, what they look like, what it means to teach these sets of students. And these were some very interesting things. I mean, when I think about it, I remember my grandma saying, how lucky you are you have a washing machine. You know? That was a big deal. Or when it's, oh, you can't believe what life was like before there were dishwashers. And now there's so many things that, you know, my grandma reminded me that I need to not take for granted, that I need to remember that my next generation of students take for granted. And so there are just some amazing things, much like internet was already adopted by the time most of these children were even born. It's always been there. So to them, it's second nature. And not only has it always been there, it's almost been mobile for a great portion of that time. So how do we start to live that way, to catch them where they're at? That's a really important process. We find that most of our students that do something online are doing it on their phones. They carry it with them. They have it all the time. And this, like I said, this is something, the link is there, you can go check it out. It was really interesting to me. I found myself reading multiple years on down the line that they had been doing for a long time, and I was laughing and sad and, and excited all at the same time, because it was just amazing, some of the truly interesting things that we can do now that we didn't really think about. The Lion King has always been on Broadway.
Cool.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I think this reminds me of one song by Miranda Lambert, that's Automatic, how life was different before everything became automatic.
Yeah, like we used to have the, you know, the automatic camera, right? And they took the picture and we would shake it, and that was awesome. And now it's, I mean, my kids know how to scroll on a phone, and they take the picture and they look at it, and they do this from the age of, you know, 1 or younger on up. And they don't even understand, my 5-year-old didn't know what a mouse was. She didn't know what to do with it. And I was like, wow, that's odd, because her older siblings knew how to mouse from the beginning of time, right? But she was like, everything's touch. Why would I use that? What does it do? And I was like, wow, she's almost a completely different generation than her older siblings. And now I have to address that as, sometimes you have to mouse. It's not always right in front of you on a screen that you can scroll through or touch on or blow up or, you know, and I was like, oh, to her that's what a computer does. You know, everything's an iPad, everything's a phone, so where do we break that? Where do we meet them, and where do we allow traditional to incorporate some of the new ways of reaching the students so that they don't feel like we're not addressing that? Because it is an important part of their cultural being, right? We want to make sure that we're not excluding that. There's another article in there that talks about this digital natives versus some of us who grew up not digital natives. But the thing is, right, so they're techie, they're media. We think they're all savvy in what they're doing. What do you think the reality of that is?
Sorry, savvy in what they're doing.
With tech, right? We think of, since they've grown up as digital natives with computers in front of them at all times, we think of them as tech savvy. But what do we think the reality of that is?
But they have become more introvert, like close in shape.
That's a very good way of saying it. It's very immediacy based. They do Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter. It's not necessarily internet wide, right? They're very specific about what their social life is or how it impacts them directly. So how do we incorporate that into education? Any thoughts?
Maybe having more interactive sessions online, like students interact with each other, forming groups, collaborations.
Great, we'll cover one of those. So yeah, so how do we get them to move from this is a social thing on my phone to being savvy in an online course or utilizing apps that help my education and seeing that this bridge is possible? Because sometimes we have expectations on the other end. Oh yeah, well this is great. You can go use this because this should be easy for you. And then they struggle, right? And we're all like, well, why do they struggle? They shouldn't struggle. They've been doing this forever, haven't they? So we need to make sure that we don't automatically make assumptions that students can do things that we're not preparing them for. So anything that that we expect them to do, we want to make sure we're prepared to understand and be able to do. So right now, we have a back channel going. That's what's up on the screens over here. The link for that is on the page in this module that's called Students of Today. So you can click on that. We'll have some prompts throughout. This just happens to be one of the ways that you can utilize back conversation. A back channel just means it is an equivalent conversation happening in the background. And it's an electronic version of that in which students can chime in about their thoughts during the process and anything that they want to come up with. We have prompts for you to participate in. We're going to have you answer some questions. If there's other things that you want to post in the back channel, feel free. It's a process in which you're welcome to be open. If you have thoughts during it, you can ask questions. It allows us to be able to monitor thoughts that are going on. One of the ways for this is, of course, students are a little more comfortable with an electronic version of posting, right? They'll post almost anything on Facebook, but they won't speak up out loud in class. So if we do a back channel, that's a way to enhance class in which they can communicate. Now, if we have GTA helping out in class, they can monitor that for you. You can take breaks throughout if you wanted to, if you need to monitor it yourself. Do that. The reason we use today's Meet for our session is some faculty members will use Twitter. They're using it for a whole semester long and doing some information with that, right? One of the problems we can run into, though, is if we're requiring students to log in, make accounts, do things that are online, sometimes that can be frustrating or intimidating, and they may not want to do that. The reason for today's Meet is you guys don't have to make accounts. It's just open for that time period. So the options here are, I think, 2 hours, 8 hours, all day, all week, something like that. So,
is there a cost?
Mm-mm.
Is this just completely free?
Just completely free. And they also can be an anonymous name. So if you want your students just to have an open conversation about something that might be controversial, or maybe they don't want to admit they didn't study last night, those kind of things, they can put in a nickname in which it's not directly associated with them and they don't feel like it will come back to haunt them at some point. So you can oftentimes get slightly more in-depth conversations that happen during this that you don't get when they have to speak up out loud in front of everybody. So we have a syllabus that comes into the course. This part here, it's just a brief syllabus description. It's where they would want to take a look to just get a overall idea. This is not a full document of the syllabus. You could put a link to a syllabus. We mentioned, right, clear expectations, letting them know. We always hand out a syllabus, or like I said, we put it in Canvas and we tell them it's there, but do they look at it? So I have the syllabus there. I also have under modules an actual document for the syllabus. So if they wanted to download it, print it, take it with them, they can. One of the key things you want to make sure that you do with your syllabus that I firmly admit that I have not done with mine yet is that we make them as accessible as possible. So there are some on the accessibility website, there are options for making your Word and your PDF files, ensuring that they're accessible for students that need that. The best thing to do is to do that up front and have it ready to go. And I am working with an individual from the accessibility office who is at this moment currently reviewing my document to tell me exactly what I need to do also and be able to incorporate that. It's just an important thing to do. We always want to encourage to pre-think accessibility as much as possible. We're going to work with that a little bit more when we get into the hybrid session as well. So, but yeah, so I have a Word document. And in that, as we said, clear expectations. So if I have software that I'm going to use, I would put it in the syllabus and have a description of what that software is, why I'm expecting them to utilize it, what I am hoping to get out of it myself, and then give them a chance to have some learning curve time to go in, check the software out, see what it does, see if they have any issues, and all of that is spelled out inside. So I have a course description, a course objective, my learning outcomes. I also have my instructional teaching method, since I'm going to be changing it up a little bit. If I'm not straight lecturing, I want them to be able to expect that I'm not straight lecturing. We're going to use some web enhanced tools. We're going to be incorporating this, this, and this. I want them to know that up front. That way they're not, whoa, I thought you were just going to lecture. Because we do get that. Students do push back a little bit sometimes. Even though they learn a lot more and end up loving it quite often, fear is initially the response that we get. Course requirements, again, if I'm going to have them do software, I want them to let, this is the different things you need to be able to utilize. Here's where you were talking about student expectations. I expect you to participate, this is part of your grade, those kind of things. Here's what the grading is. Different things that are important that we want to make sure that they know. Now, one of the other things you could do that several faculty do is they just do a short little quiz that actually asks students if they've gone in and looked at the syllabus. Now this can be low stakes, few points, no big deal, but it's still important that it shows them they know how to get to the syllabus should they need it, and that they've actually located a few key items. Whatever your key items are, those would be, I have a just simple 5 questions. Like, if this was a fully online class, one of the things I would want is I have turnaround times, right? Because again, even if you're not in a fully online class, they'll email you, right? They're going to email you, and they're going to go, why didn't you email me back? It's been a whole hour. And you're going to go, well, here's my statement inside my syllabus, and if you go find that, you will know that I will respond to you. It might not be within the hour. So they have to go find that. This is, again, some of these are fully online. Please provide one of the learning objectives. What am I actually asking you to do in this course? Can you define that if they look at it? Other questions that would be in there. And then I like to list the resources for students. Even though they're in a face-to-face class, there are still really good resources out there that students should have access to. And so I want them to know that those resources are listed in the syllabus. I want them to be able to go find that. And so I'm asking them a question, have you found those resources? And those are my 5 simple questions that say, look, my syllabus is out on the web, it's in Canvas, it's available for you 24/7. Should you have a question, now you know where to find it, now you know what the important parts are. Reference that before you email me. Anyway, so you are welcome to take the quiz and submit answers, even as TAs. You can do it randomly, or you can look at the syllabus, whichever you feel like. Since this grade will not affect the outcome of your day. Okay. So, how many of you done what's called the VARK analysis? Yay! Good job. Okay, so the VARK analysis, what is it? If you click on it inside your link, I would like you to actually participate in the VARK questionnaire. This is all about how you learn best. Now there's some discourse out here about these different topics. How I learn best. One of these things is we're looking at as an instructor, right, in how I learn best, is that we realize that people learn in different modes. There's some newer theories in the educational process that says we don't want to cater to a learning process that students have because we want them to start to be slightly uncomfortable to then learn because they're put into that zone. However, I think a mix is nice with that. So the idea of what the VARK can really do is allow us to realize that we need to be able to begin to teach in multiple modes and reach people in multiple ways. And at some point, someone isn't going to be in their ideal situation, but we're still reaching a great vast many people, and we're changing it up, right? We're making it interesting, we're allowing that to happen. So, yeah, so if you click on the link, please take a minute to take the VARC questionnaire. And some instructors will actually utilize this to be able to have their students take the VARC so that they realize what studying strategies they need to have. It's not necessarily about even exactly which technique I need, because it's not, I can't change what my instructor is doing, but I can tailor how I need to study to better succeed in this class. So now, since you've taken the VARC questionnaire, I would like you to click on the link that showed up as the survey students. And that is going to take you to a poll everywhere, hopefully. That's the other thing about using technology, right? Is that sometimes we have to be prepared for it not to work.
That was my answer.
Thanks. I like that. So yes, and it has different options. You can take it online. They can text an answer. It shows up. So and as you can see, it's anonymous. So I wouldn't. And this, I utilized it for this topic, but you can utilize it for any topic. I have another one that I'm hopefully going to be able to load here in a minute. That should be slightly different besides just the vote. But, so this way you can get students to give feedback about what it is that they're learning, how they're learning it, are they understanding the topic, do you have to revisit the topic, is it something that they need to touch base on, do I need to load resources into the Canvas site that they maybe need from a different viewpoint, something that they're struggling with, so I know how the students are doing on a specific topic without, we engage faces because we're in the face-to-face class still, but this is a nice measurement as well.
I work in residence life, and so with our RA training, we actually we have 4 big content areas, and we design so using VARC, we design learning outcomes and learning assessments with each of the ones, so each content area has some type of activity that uses all 4. So there are so that way each big content area should rely on, if one person is completely kinesthetic, there should be at least one point in it that they are getting all of them.
That's amazing.
It takes a lot of time.
It does, you're right, it does. But the way that you're addressing the students' needs for that, and that, like I said, one component can make all the difference, so that there's something that everybody's getting, and they're getting exposed to it in different ways also, right? Because the more times we're exposed to materials, the easier it is to learn, so even if it's different ways.
We also have to tell them, just because you might get kinesthetic as your most dominant one does not mean you can't read. Like,
Right.
does not mean you should not read when you're doing a reading assignment. So I think it's also, it's a good tool, but we also have to preface it with, this isn't limiting you, this is just how you prefer and how that might work out.
Right. Or maybe build on those other ones a little bit if you need to
So
process
you
that.
can't not participate.
Right. That's a good point, thank you. The nice thing about the poll everywhere is that when we're utilizing here for this is the free version. You can do a paid version. You can do surveys inside Canvas. There are other tools besides poll everywhere. This just happens to be one. The free version only does up to 25 individuals that are allowed to respond to a poll. So if I was having a large class, that wouldn't work. But there are options. You can do Qualtrics surveys that we have a university license for. That is an option as well. And so there are, for every one thing you want to do, there is multiple software and applications available. You just have to pick the one that's most convenient and easiest for you to be able to utilize. And doing that, you can sit down with colleagues and talk to them. You can come and sit down with our departments and talk with us. We have ourselves and we have the IMG department. that's very well versed in many of the technologies as well. So that's a process that we're happy to help you walk through as you try to figure those things out as well. So. Are there any other thoughts or questions so far as we're going through the things that we'll do a full at the end, but I just want to make sure we're not missing anything that so we're kind of going through as a. Because yes, do please share what works or doesn't work. If you've had something that didn't work out so well, that's okay too. We learn from that just as well. All right, the next link I'm going to have you guys check out is an interactive math site. And the reason I'm sharing this one, even though it's math specific, is that Dr. Regina Jackson went out and just started searching. She had no idea what was out there. She just knew she wanted to do something interesting. So that's just a process she went through. So even though might not be a specific individual or a colleague that's utilizing something, there's a lot of options. And so she went out and did trial and error. Just happened to find this piece of software, and it has worked fabulously. I'm going to click on that link. And she has created each of these pieces to be interactive, so the students go in during class time and work with these different things, so they actually get some visuals on the concepts that she's talking about, because she might talk about these as equations or as theories, but here's some things that are really, truly visual representations, and it's some concrete knowledge for them, and they have a ton of fun learning, and they don't even know it. So I actually had fun. I had to test one of them out for her, and I was like, the border tile one, I'm just going to say, so you're going to take a couple minutes, and you're going to be able to play with these. But you actually get to refresh. There we go. You actually move them around and build things, and I was enthralled, and I didn't know anything about the concept whatsoever. And then when she explained it to me, I was like, oh, I get it. So there's so many amazing things. There's also the boiler one that I tend to enjoy. So you actually make things boil. So yes, start animation. And then she's talking about this, right? So it's in class. It's web enhanced. It's not a fully online option, but she's working through these, and they're actually interacting with these components. And she just happened upon this as she was doing a Google search for what might be out there that would be available to help her do this interactive piece that she was looking for. And yes, it was a fair amount of work for her to set it up for the first semester, right? She had to go in and build the components, she had to draw the pieces, she had to put in the formula information. However, now that that's done, she can go back in every semester, utilize what she wants to, tweak, change, update, and that initial amount of work is done. So, even though it can feel very overwhelming to start to include these components, it can really have some added benefit as you move forward. So, don't let that be your hurdle. So, I want you guys to go in and play with these a little bit. Let me give you a couple minutes, because it's just too much fun. Okay, did everyone have a ton of fun? So yes, all right, so the next thing I want to point out again is that there's lots of tools and lots of things available. There isn't any one right answer to what web enhanced items that you're utilizing. There's a page in here that we'll have you check out when you're, hopefully later today, if you don't have a chance here yet for the end of this session. There's lots of things that you can incorporate into your classes you're going to utilize, right? So if we do brainstorming, one of the things that we're going to utilize for the hybrid class that we do next week is we're actually going to use some software called Padlet, and we're going to be able to work with that. And so that's going to be a interesting and fun activity as well. So we want to be able to incorporate active and engaged things that still follow what we're doing with our teaching strategies, right? If we want to do some brainstorming, of course, there's the word clouds that have been around for a while. We can do Wordles that they put in the words and we put those all up and it shows up as an image up on the screen and it shows what everybody's thinking. There's collaboration and peer review. They're actually, Google Docs is incorporated into Canvas, and that's actually under the collaborations option right over here on the left. And so I can go in here and start a session and I can have different students group work as groups and collaborate on a Google Doc. One of the things that you can utilize with this is a lot of our teaching is supposed to incorporate writing. So if you want to have that and have students do peer review of writing, you can incorporate the Google Docs so that they can share that and actually start to do some of the peer review options. And that's pretty exciting as well, because then they're actually integrating with each other's writing. And like I said, the nice thing is it's already incorporated right into Canvas, and so you don't, they do have to have a Google account, so they do have to work with that. The other thing for writing assignments, when we do writing, we don't always think of the online web-enhanced options of the Miller Writing Center. They have online tutoring available for students that they can sign up for scheduled time. And they can do this from anywhere then. They can do it from their dorm room, they can do it from an apartment, they can do it if they're traveling. So you can actually incorporate that as a web-enhanced tool because they can go, they don't have to go to the library to get assistance with their writing. So if you're doing a research paper in your class, if there's something you want them to be able to do that's in-depth writing, then they have access to that, which is really pretty exciting. And we don't always take advantage of the fact that they're there to help students. They can, since they are on campus, they can go over there, but it is available online. Now, what are your some of your other options? You can talk with publishers. How many of you work with Pearson? That's usually often the main one. There are so many things that publishers have out there that are packages that are available to incorporate into your courses. And sometimes if you have a big enough class, they'll actually work with designing some things for you. We had one of the human resource classes, and what they did was Pearson went in and developed what would be like a Sims storyline. And so as they made choices through the lifespan of this birth to adult person that was their avatar for the class, everything affected them differently depending on the choices that they made. And Pearson developed this for them, and they incorporated it into one of their large classes. And it was actually pretty exciting. So, and because everything has a branch, right? It changes and that's a lot of work. I mean, that's a huge storyline. But if you have a company that's willing to do that, quite often they'll work on doing that with you. So you just have to have a Pearson rep or someone that you're willing to, or not just Pearson, that one happened to be Pearson, that's how I know of that one, but any publisher rep will often want to work with you because they need that. So that's a niche that they need to fit into. So don't be afraid to look into what those options are. Now we talked a little bit about, as we're saying, the VARC, right? The VARC is, we're talking about being able, not necessarily teaching in one specific way, it's talking about teaching in multiple ways so that we're addressing multiple avenues. One of the other things about that is that also helps with accessibility, because if we put up a video, which we're going to work with a little bit in the hybrid sessions, is then we can closed caption that. And so we're making life accessible to everybody in as many ways as we can. So it's not just about specifically trying to reach one group, it's about helping everybody in multiple ways. So lastly, according to that too, we also have what we have as a teaching perspectives, and that's something you can do on your own, and that's a little more in depth, and that's actually talking about you as a teacher, and so we're going to allow you to take that. And what it does is it kind of looks at the things and how you do that. So they have the different 5 perspectives. So let's just pull that up real quick. So there's different ways that we tend to teach, and this just helps you kind of analyze that as well. So how many of you plan to come to the hybrid session? Do you know? Fabulous. So yes, like I said, we will be moving into using some of the collaboration tools and actually doing some projects and working with some of that. So this was just a quick introduction to all of the millions of options you have available to you, and the fact that you don't have to start by completely overhauling everything, right? You can do baby steps. You can pick one thing and incorporate that. The math instructor does that one piece. So you can find a piece that helps you reach your students in a different way. So, are there any questions, thoughts, concerns?
I just want to, I'm interested in knowing, I know there are so many softwares are available outside for developing online course videos, but still, which one is effective? I'm a little confused about in that part. What is more, and then how you present actually your thought, like, is it just that you talk or show them something different, like something on a blackboard or something interactive?
All of those are great. It's which one fits what you're trying to get across. So the best thing to do there is kind of sit down and think about what would be the most important piece for your students in that. Generally, we want to make sure that it fits how you would teach that. So if you need to demonstrate something, that would be important, right? And there's different ways to do that. You can do that on a tablet. That would capture. You can do it on an iPad. You can actually demonstrate.
Sort of a screen capture.
You can do that as well. And we'll discuss some of those options in the hybrid session next week. And if you can't make it to that, let me know and we'll set up a session and talk about what some of the university options are, what some of the free options are, what it is that you're looking for. The university has a Panopto, which is a really fabulous screen capture, and that's the one I generally recommend. And we'll try to demonstrate that. So, thank you. That's a good precursor for next week. Any other thoughts?
Did you say we would or would not have access to the sandbox so that we can have access to these features or not?
After today, you will not have access to this sandbox. There will be a course coming later in this spring that we will include those that participated today to be able to log into.
Would it be possible to leave it up maybe for a week? No?
If I do that, I have to enroll as students because I have other information in there that's not privy to being dispersed. So that maybe could happen. I just have to go re-enroll them have them re-enrolled as students. Then I don't have access to that. So we can see, but otherwise this information will be coming. And I can also email some of the links out to you as well. We can follow up with emails of information that I can pull out of here that we can make sure you have. Fabulous. Thank you all for coming. I hope you got what you needed out of it. If you didn't and there's still something you think of afterwards, please feel free to email us. We will gladly address anything. Any thoughts?